Okay, so I have not seen a single episode of Transformers Earthspark yet. I really want to. It looks really cool. I love a lot of the designs. I like seeing some of the returning characters and whatnot that I had spoiled for me, which is fine. But I don't have Paramount Plus, so I haven't been able to watch it yet. But all that being said, when I saw this was coming out, I was like, I have to try and get that because one, I love Grimlock, but two, I actually am like one of maybe 8 people on the planet who likes the Cyberverse Deluxe Grimlock mold. So I was really happy to see that they were making another Grimlock with that. Also, hopefully this one doesn't have the yellowing problems that Cyberverse Grimlock has, because take a look at that. Actually, let me turn up the brightness a little so you can kind of see. Like, that is not great. Like, I don't know how well it's coming through, but like there's some distinct differences between this portion of the leg and this portion. Like these panels versus these panels. The dino head, the dino flaps versus the, like, yeah. This thing, just a lot of yellowing, and that really bums me out because I do really like this figure, and also I did a lot of custom work on this one. But to heck with me, right? But now I've got this, and this is a okay. This is a very cool Grimlock. I like the dino design, I like the robot design, but I also kind of miss how this one was a bit of a deviation. So there is that. But I do like this. It does have its drawbacks, though. One of the things that's really kind of disappointing about this Grimlock is you kind of have to have him in this position. I will explain why when we look at the head and do the articulation and stuff, but basically he has to be like this. You can't angle the head down and do much with regards to, changing the angle of the head. But it does look good, and considering I have not done any work on this Grimlock other than just tightening a couple of joints, whereas in this Grimlock I've painted a bunch, so like looking at the painted details between them is kind of unfair, but something to point out, like, this Grimlock's tail is painted. This Grimlock's tail was all one solid color. This is only yellow and silver at the tip because I made it that way. All of this detailing on the side here was not painted. There is no detailing on the side here, but still, that was me. This is not me. So they did a decent job with the paint. I also like what they did on the sides here. Let's just talk about this now, I guess. I mean, most of the paint detailing for the Dino mode is in the front section of the body, but you do get some nice red plating or spines going along here. I'm not entirely sure why they only painted the fronts or tops of these plates and not the sides. I'm assuming, like, as far as I know, I think these are supposed to be red. I haven't taken a good long look at the character models or anything like that, but unless this is a show accuracy thing, I just don't understand why they didn't paint the sides red to match this, but whatever. But back here they're painted red all the way, so that's nice. And I like that they did the tail in yellow, so it carries that red all the way through, but then the tail also stands out a bit. The geometry of the shoulders or hips is a lot simpler than I'm used to seeing on a Grimlock, but I don't mind it. And I like that it's kind of this interesting, almost not diamond shape, but like this kind of cut gem shape with like multiple flat surfaces kind of coming in towards the center. I just think that's a neat design. It's not typical Grimlock. Granted, this isn't typical Grimlock either, but he does have little circles. So that was an element that kind of brought it through. But I like that this is different. And the rest of the Dino mode is actually pretty cool. Like, I really like the layered plate armor look that they've got going here. And I also really like the blue light details coupled with the red there. And the painted black forearms, though just on the sides. It doesn't go all the way around. And the head also looks nice, and this is a thing that I had to do myself with the Cyberverse one, but I like that you've got the yellow neck, but then the piping is left in like gray. I can't quite tell if this is separate pieces. I think they're separate pieces. It's hard to say for sure, but I do think these are actually separate pieces. But yeah, I like that color separation, because as I said, that's a thing I actually had to do on the Cyberverse figure myself. So I like that. And then the head itself is way, way more pointed than a lot of Grimlocks. I mean, I guess this is more in line with the G1 cartoon, but I don't know, it's very, very pointy. This is like the Kali of Grimlock Dino modes. But the detailing, again, is nice. I like this kind of, like, it's not super textured, but there is a lot of really nice angular shapes that give a lot of really cool definition to everything. And then also I like the black they painted on the cheeks, the blue for the eyes, the red for the top of the head, and the silver for the lower jaw. And he also has a little bit of a port there that presumably could use a blast effect, but I don't have any blast effects on hand. Oh wait, no, yes I do. What am I thinking? I can just yoink one from Rotor Storm. You can see if this works. And yes, it does. So you can totally blast effect it up with Grimlock, even though he doesn't actually come with any blast effects. Yeah. Cyberverse Grimlock came with blast effects, this one does not. He comes with this gun, though, which I'm pretty sure is meant to evoke his twin-barreled gun from, that we see in a lot of other figures. Cast in yellow, a little bit of red at the top. I appreciate that. It is what it is. It's nicely molded. There's a lot of nice intricate detail to it, but it's kind of an okay then accessory. I feel like, it's fine to give Grimlock a gun, but I also feel like given he's Grimlock, he probably doesn't need it most of the time. But yeah, head is nicely detailed, and as I said, the only real gripe I have is the light blue for the eye does get lost a little bit in the gray. Not a huge deal, but it gets lost a tiny bit. But yeah, I think this is a cool dino design. I like the red spines going along the back, how it kind of starts up here and goes all the way, but you also get a little bit of the red in the head, so it kind of carries the color through. The shape's nice. He still has the little dual barrel things over his back like the Cyberverse one did, which again, like I painted those, and that was a pain, by the way, but same basic design there. And yeah, it's cool. Now, the problem with the articulation, particularly the head, is as you saw, you can pop the neck down, so you can have him look down a bit. And that's fine. I appreciate that. I like that you can have him like that or like that. But the problem is you can't really do much with the head because the jaw and the upper part of the head are on separate pieces that aren't really lined up well, which is part of the way that the Cyberverse one was designed. But it looks fine when you do like roaring poses or close the mouth, but if you angle things wrong, you can kind of start to get really weird with it, and that's that I'm less into that. I don't really like giving Grimlock's Dino mode the Barracuda jaw, so I mostly either leave it like that or do something like that in Dino mode. But the rest of the articulation is, kind of what you'd expect. Got the ball jointed hips, but they do have a decent amount of cutout up here, so you can get out pretty decent considering how bulky all this is. And of course, you can go all the way around, and because it's a ball socket, you can get a little bit of a butterfly motion. You get a knee/thigh swivel, but you don't actually get much in the way of knee motion. Like, you can wiggle that ball joint a bit, but that's all you're getting unless you want to bend in, and I generally don't. And you can also wiggle the toes and claws if you want to do that. So pretty simple, but I do think he's neat for what he is. Now, whoops, I thought I had the zoom selected. I did not. So, with that done, that blunder, Let's do size comparisons. So there's Voyager Arts. Why do I want to call them Art Storm? Art Fire, Rotor Storm, or Art Storm and Rotor Fire? I don't know. Ova Prime, Samus, and Burnout. And I mean, yeah, like, okay, Earthspark Grimlock, he is a deluxe, but he's an Earthspark Deluxe, so he's, like, size-wise is not bad compared to a, typical modern deluxe, but he does feel just a little bit lighter, not as dense, which I'm fine with. It's just a thing to note. But let's get all of this out of the way again, so we can bring back Cyberverse Grimlock, even though we already saw the two of them together. This way you can kind of get a little bit more of a prolonged look at them. So there we go. There is Earthspark Grimlock with Cyberverse Grimlock, and they are the same figure with some very minor differences. Like the transformation's slightly different in that the base for the Dino Mode neck sits a little bit further in, but like the overall components and where everything goes is pretty identical. You've got an upswing on the tail rather than it going straight out, but yeah, it's the same. It is pretty much the same. And mine is just yellowed beyond belief. The only bits on this guy that aren't yellowed are like the Dino Mode head, the feet, like these feet, the shoulder sections, and like these bits of the legs. Everything else, oh, and the outside, I guess, of the like the outer flaps there, but like everything else is sadly yellowing. But because of all the custom work I did on this guy, I haven't really wanted to get rid of him yet. I'm kind of hoping that maybe everything else will yellow, so then it'll at least be uniform, but that hasn't happened, so screw me, I guess. But yeah, that's how those two stack up together. Get you out of there and bring in our most important size comparison of them all. There is Earthspark Deluxe Grimlock with the duck tank. Alright, transformation for Earthspark Deluxe Grimlock is it's exactly the same as Cyberverse Deluxe Grimlock. So to start, let's unpeg this piece from up here. This does peg in slightly differently. It just sits a little bit further back than the Cyberverse version, but like it's the same engineering. So that plugs in there. This untabs from here, and okay, yes, this is another difference. These bits actually tab in together, whereas with the Cyberverse version, they just sat together. I don't really know why they added the tabs. I don't think they're strictly necessary, but they're there. And then I'm going to fold that up so we can rotate this around. And this was like this. We're going to hinge it back on this double hinge like that, so it forms a foot. Now we can unpeg this so we can split the tail. And we'll just do this one leg first. So swing that around. And basically you want to have it so that this tab is perpendicular to this panel, because this tab is going to tab in to the shin and like the center thing there. So just line that up and tab it in, tab it in. There we go. So yeah, line that up and swing it in, tab it in, and then this will swing down, and you can either have it sit on the back of this joint here, or I find if you tilt it out of the way, you can actually push it in further and it'll sit in front of the joint, and that will keep the tail from flipping back out. So that's how I do that. And you can rotate the thigh, bring the leg out, and there is one leg. The other leg is a little bit more complicated because the foot is inside the torso, which is a weird sentence the more I think about it. So I want to split the sides of the dino chest apart because it does tab in. Then you can pull that out, and it's actually covering up the head like it was with the Cyberverse version. you can see these tabs on the side of the foot tab into these bits on the arm, the flaps. So untap that, and like before, swing this out and around, swing this down, and continue swinging this around so that we can line up this peg with that center section there, bring this in and peg it. And you'll know it's pegged because this won't like easily move out. So peg that in, and now just bring this tail piece down while we can. And you can leave it here if you want. I like to push it just a little bit more so it sits inside that lip. That really locks that tail piece in place, keeps it from popping back out. And then this foot is on a double hinge as well, though it sits a little further forward, so you want to hinge it back. And then this piece also will hinge back. And that gives you that leg. And just rotate at the thigh. And oh good, the hip doesn't pop off like it does in the Cyberverse version. So there we've got the lower body. Just want to rotate the waist. And there is all of that. Now the upper body is pretty simple. We're practically done at this point. Going to bring the arms down and fold this back. With this folded back, we can now splay this open and hinge. This piece goes in and this swings up, and then this, I want to disconnect the neck on that peg there and then swing the entire head panel back around, and then this will swing up and this will tab in here, and that will kind of lock the backpack together. And what I like to do is take the flaps and bring them back until they kind of like, you'll feel them kind of like thunk into place. And I like to do that. And then also straighten out the dino head, fold that up. There's that. And now for the arms, want to rotate at the knee/elbow, bring the fists out, and now the instructions have you point the toes up like this. And that's totally fine. Personally, because this Grimlock looks a little meaner than the Cyberverse version, I actually like to flip these down, and you can do that to make it look like he's got Wolverine claws or something. But this is how the directions show you to do it, but I just think it looks cooler like that. And also, this is how the Cyberverse one does it. But yeah, there is Earthspark Deluxe Grimlock, and he looks really cool. I like the, it's a simplistic color scheme. This is gray, red, yellow, and black. But it gets the job done. I do feel like this would look better if it was gold, but for what it is, I think it looks just fine. The sculpting is actually really nice on this thing too. Like, you've got a lot of the same details you saw in the Dyno mode, but like you get to kind of see them in a different context, I guess. I like the asymmetry between the feet. I also like it. Like, it's interesting because it's asymmetrical, but it's not. Because if you look at the texturing, they're the same. The only real difference is you've got the tabs on this one and no spines, and then the spines on this one and no tabs. And also peg there. So if you wanted to, you could give him gun toes. Just peg that back in, and Grimlock can do that and be all like, I don't know. Was there a thing in John Wick where he shot someone with his foot? I wouldn't be surprised if there was. But yeah, we'll get back to that. But I think that asymmetry is cool, and I think the kind of coloring here is cool too. I like that there's a little bit more going on with the legs this time around than there was in the Cyberverse one by default. I mean, we'll see when we bring that guy out for the comparisons. There is now more color in those legs, but that's because of what I did, not like the figure didn't come like that. But you get it's kind of a G1-y Grimlock vibe, with the gray boots, black thighs, red waist section, gold, or in this case, yellow torso, gray arms, black head. And I dig that, but I also like how it has that Earthspark aesthetic. where things are just a little bit more angular and plated looking in a lot of places, where like the texturing itself is relatively simple, but the shapes are more complex. I really, really like this torso design. I like this kind of plated armor coming forward past the midriff section sculpting there. That looks really cool, and the shapes are really nice too. It's kind of like, I don't know, it kind of makes me think of like an angry concept car, if that makes any kind of sense. And also, I'm just now realizing that little red dot underneath the bigger red trapezoid on his chest is actually an Autobot logo. That is an incredibly tiny Autobot logo. Like, let's just, for a comparison, here is Samus's head. That is a very small logo. I appreciate the dedication, though. But yeah, I love the sculpt on this chest, and there is a nice amount of color breakup here too. You know, you've got the black in the midriff section, which really adds some nice definition, and the little bit of red up there, which looks really good. It, you know, wouldn't hurt to have a little bit more, but I feel like there's enough for what we have. The arms are a little plain, but it doesn't bother me too much because my eye's more drawn to this section rather than here. And even though they're plain, I do like that it's not even like again, there's no real molding here, but it's not simple either. You've got 4 distinct angles on this thing, or I guess 3 angles, but 4 distinct like planes of a shape when you're looking at the shoulders straight on. It just adds a little bit of visual interest despite it not being, you know, super detailed. And the forearms are pretty much the same forearms as the Cyberverse figure, but now you've got these little segmented toe claws and the little kind of overly tiny fists. I wonder if these are the same fists. They're definitely not the same claws, but they might be the same fists. Actually, yeah, they look like they are. They look like they might be the same fists. I mean, that's fine. They're fists, and they're Grimlock fists either way, but there is that. And that just came unpegged. I tightened up the hips on this guy. They were a little bit loose when I first got him, and now they're so tight that trying to bend them down, they're actually like disconnecting the backpack. That's on me. Yeah, another thing I actually really like about the way they handled this particular figure is, if you notice, the ball sockets on the insides of the shoulders are separate pieces, which I don't remember if that was the case. If that was the case on the Cyberverse figure, I don't know. No, they were. Okay, looking at the Cyberverse figure, the ball sockets were a separate piece, but they were molded in the same color as the shoulders. So I like that these are molded in black, because yeah, it looks a little bit messy up here. I don't know if that's actually intentional, like show accurate or whatever, but I do like that while the shoulders are gray, there's this black plastic sitting inside them, so they don't look quite as monotone, yeah, as you know, the Cyberverse figures did immediately out of the box. And then, oh, actually, before we look at the head, let's just do a quick look around here. And this is, it's good. Like, this is a good figure. I don't know why so many people hate it. It's fun to transform, and it's interesting. It does something different with Grimlock, but it's really clever. I like that the back and tail still becomes the legs, but it does it in a completely different way. So now it's like split in half horizontally rather than just the legs curling up over the back. It's a really interesting transformation, and everything kind of still ends up in the same place, which is kind of miraculous when you think about how drastically different it all is. And also, the dino head and chest flaps and arms end up in the same place, but I also think it's really clever how it kind of, like, it turns these inside out, but like that is accurate to the design. It's just done in a much more interesting way, in my mind at least. I don't know. I think this is super cool. The only thing that bugs me about the backpack is I kind of wish this lock wasn't there, so you could either, you could kind of angle it between those points, and you kind of can if you force it, but if you bump it too much, it'll snap back to one position or the other. And like that looks too flat. That looks like it's angled back a little too much, so it's kind of pick your poison. And also these arms, I kind of wish they could either rotate around or just move in some way, because I feel like they're angled up a little too high for my liking. But all that said, this is still a cool Grimlock. I don't know. I will not understand ever why people hate on this mold the way they do. Now, the head is also very Grimlock. I appreciate them doing the blue eyes instead of the red. Though, interestingly enough, he has more pronounced ears this time. I don't know if that's like a color choice from the show or if it's something else, but he does have these gray ears around the black head, but I like that they painted it all the way around. That's cool. And the blue eyes do stand out extremely nicely on the black. The only problem is the black is so dark and thick that you lose a lot of the molded detail in the head, but at the same time, if you really look at it, the sculpting, like, it's there. You even get that little telltale, like, Grimlock mouth plate, and it looks good. And there is, there's the sculpting there, but I kind of feel like you don't need to see it. It's very dark. It stands, it doesn't stand out, but then you still get that nice pop of blue, and then you get to make out the details from like the ears and the little neck down there. I don't know. I think it's cool. The ears, I'm a little bit like, they look a little bit weird to me, almost like merman-ish, but it's fine. It's still a cool Grimlock. Anyway, the articulation, as you saw, the head is on a ball joint, so you can look left and right and up, a surprising amount of up, and also down. The shoulders are on these ball sockets, so you can do some pretty decent motion, like butterfly motion, and go out. Not super far. That is disappointing. That is a limitation of the mold, but I'm generally okay with that. I feel like they probably could have cut like a channel in there so that you could go out further, especially given how this is sculpted, but it is what it is. And of course you can go all the way around. Because the elbows are ball socketed, you get what amounts to a bicep swivel, and then you also get almost 90 degrees of bend at the elbow. No wrist articulation, but you can swing it in if you want, and then of course you can also decide whether you want this to be up or down, and as I said, I prefer down. You get a waist swivel, which can go to a pretty decent amount before it knocks into the backpack here. If you get that backpack out of the way, you can go the rest of the way around, but I don't really think it's necessary to, like if you move it out like that, then this is gonna start getting floppy. So yeah, I'd say stick with whatever gives you the backpack stability and just, live with that amount of waist swivel. I feel like that's fine. That is plenty. The hips, get this out of the way. The hips can go forward to just about 90 and can go back to 90 until it starts hitting this, but it could probably go a little further if this wasn't in the way. And go out to almost 90. You get the thigh rotation, and thankfully the thigh rotation coupled with the ball joints on this figure is it does not cause the leg to pop off like it did with the Cyberverse one. So that is appreciated. And that was before I tightened the hips. It was fine. You get a little bit less than 90 on the knees, but I think that's fine. And if you really wanted to, you could kind of unpeg things a little bit so that you could rotate this joint down further, which gives you like a teensy bit more. It really doesn't want to. There we go. Like, the things you have to do to get this to rotate past 90 just aren't worth it. Or even 290. So yeah, I feel like just, that's fine. Then the feet, you do get ankle tilts. It's kind of obscene amount of ankle tilt, and because of the transformation joints, you also can move the toes down and kind of not really up on this foot, but I think on this foot, yeah. Because of this transformation joint, you can move this foot forward as well. So you can kind of do like running, like stepping or running forward poses, kind of. With let's try like this. Yeah, you can kind of. Oh, that's not even on camera. You can kind of do like a running forward kind of pose. Make it look like he's actually doing some kind of run. You can do that. I don't know. I don't really need him to do that, but it's cool that it's there. And then he has his gun, which we briefly looked at in Dino mode, and the gun is it is the same thing as before. It looks like his more classic styled gun, except it's yellow now. And this will peg into his fist, and he can, you know, do the thing that you do with these kinds of things. So yeah, he is, as I said, it's a cool figure. Honestly, if I didn't have Cyberverse Grimlock anymore, like if I had gotten rid of him in a fit of rage, let's say, because of the yellowing, which really sucks, I would be extremely happy with this because I really like the mold. And the thing that made me really bummed out about the yellowing on Cyberverse Grimlock it was the fact that it was kind of like, well, what do I do now? What this mold is kind of, I really like this figure, but the yellowing's driving me crazy. But now I've got this. So if I ever do decide to get rid of Cyberverse Grimlock, I have this one, so I can still enjoy the mold. Anyway, is Artfire and Rotor Storm and Over Prime and Samus. So there he is with all of them. And let's get these out of the way, because I do want to do a proper, like, deluxe with deluxe comparison. Like, I know Rotor Storm's a deluxe, but as has been established many times in the past, he is a tall deluxe. So with a more typical deluxe, there is Earthspark Grimlock with a more typical deluxe, and you can see that they're roughly the same height. Burnout is denser than Grimlock, but Grimlock looks a little bit more built. Like, he's got much bigger arms, for one thing. But yeah, height-wise, it's about the same height. Maybe a teensy bit shorter than Burnout, but only a teensy bit. And because here he is with Cyberverse Grimlock, who you can really see the yellowing there. I'm just not a fan of that. It really bums me out. But again, I put a lot of work into this guy, so for now at least, this is just how he is. But yeah, it's a lot of extensive remolding going on here. It is ultimately the same exact mold, but you can tell from a lot of the detailing in like the legs and the shoulders and the entire torso section, obviously the head and the dino wings on the back and stuff. Like, it is a different mold. I think the only thing on the legs, other than like just the engineering that are the same, are the panels on the inside. They look to be the same actual shape and molding. Just, these are that color gray, these are this color gray, because these I painted. The yellow and the black on these, that's me. So yeah, there's how they look together. And I still really like the Cyberverse Grimlock design. I like that it's different for Grimlock. It still hits a lot of the same notes, but it is different. And I also liked his depiction, how he was like this kind of overzealous adventuring, I don't want to say idiot, because he wasn't an idiot, but like he was a bit, let's say, bombastic. And I thought that was just a fun depiction for Grimlock. He was, I guess, like Thunderclash, if Thunderclash was a Dinobot. I don't know. I don't know enough about Thunderclash, but the point is, I really like this depiction and this figure, and I really hate that it's yellowing like this. But I've seen a lot of other of this Grimlock on the aftermarket, and a lot of them seem to be yellowing, so that's just a thing that happens with this mold, I guess. Or with this specific figure, I mean. But like I said, it is what it is, and now I've got this one. I can at least hang on to that if I want to keep the figure, but get rid of the yellowing one. Anyway, Duck Tank. So that is going to do it for Earthspark Deluxe Grimlock. I know this figure has plenty of detractors, not just the, this particular Grimlock figure, but the mold in general, but I am not one of them. I will absolutely continue to, I guess, rattle the... I don't know what the expression is. I'm going to continue to stand by this mold. It is a fun and interesting mold that absolutely has its flaws and limitations, but I think it's a really clever and interesting and entertaining transformation, and you're left with a pretty cool Grimlock figure with some really interesting and neat proportions in either Earthspark or Cyberverse. It doesn't matter. It's a cool Grimlock. And I'm very glad that they gave this mold another shot. I wouldn't mind if they did even more with it. Give us... I would totally go in on like a G2 Grimlock with this figure. I don't care. But that is enough about what I think of this figure. Did I forget to do the Patreon thing? I don't think I forgot to do the Patreon thing. If I did forget, Coffee and Patreon links in the description below. If I didn't forget, I'm sorry for repeating myself, but that's all I'm going to say on that subject, so I don't have to reiterate it a whole bunch. But thank you, everybody, for watching. Again, as per usual, feel free to tell me what you think in the comments. And I think I'm done recording for this particular batch of videos, but we'll see what the next one is. It will be as much of a surprise for me as it is for you.